about 1,070 years ago in Baghdad, the capital of Al-Khilafah Al-Abbasiyya, the Abbasid Caliph. There was a young man who traveled from the countryside, the son of a soldier. He started seeking knowledge at an early age. He was a devout student of knowledge. But the knowledge was not in the countryside. The teachers were in Baghdad. The best teachers in the Muslim world, the fuqaha, the muhaddithun, were all in Baghdad. So he decided to travel to Baghdad despite his family's extreme poverty. He says, I'll go to Baghdad and learn from the best teachers, then I will fulfill my dream of becoming a Muslim scholar who will serve the Ummah and help those who need guidance and who need help. And I will also most likely be able to find a job and provide for myself and for my family. So he goes to Baghdad, he rents a room, and he finds some labor job, a random job. Some days he works, other days he doesn't. With the little finances he used to secure, he would divide them into 3 parts. 1/3 goes to support his family in the countryside. The second third pays the rent for his room, and the third was just for him to survive for his basic expenses, until he advances in his knowledge and in his studies, and hopefully he would find a better job. So every day as he goes to the market to look for a new labor job, he would pass by a diwan. And the diwan at the time was the government place where all the registry was, all the paperwork, all the documents, all the archives, all the government papers and documentation were kept in the diwan. And a diwan would usually employ people who are very skilled at writing and at mathematics and calculations, because they needed these type of skills, and very good at organization and bookkeeping. Every day he would pass by a diwan and check with them if there is any open post so he could get a job. And every day he was told, we don't need anyone, until the guards, the soldiers or the policemen, the security of a diwan became familiar with him. They see him, before he arrives, they would shout at him, no post today, keep going to the market, keep marching to the market. And for 3 months, one time for 3 months, he had found no job, no work. So his savings were running out. He had not sent money back to his family. And he was behind, he was falling behind on the rent for his room. And the landlord was getting very angry, and he said, listen, you have 3 days. If you don't pay the rent by the 3rd day, you're going to jail. And he said, I didn't know what to do with my life. So I didn't have anyone to borrow money from. I tried to get a job. I didn't get a job. So every day he would go to the market, and it was then the 3rd day. He goes out, passes by a diwan, asks, this day doesn't pass by a diwan. He goes straight to the market because he's not himself. He realizes today he might be taken to jail. His luggage might be thrown in the streets. So he goes to the market, no job. He's so desperate, out of sorts, doesn't know what to do. He turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in dua, and he walks and he says, I lost myself. I didn't know where I was going. I just kept walking, not aware of my surroundings. He ends up in one of the remote areas in Baghdad, in the outskirts, a remote area, and there was this tiny house, old house there. So he was so tired and it was hot, and he decided to rest in the shade of that house, simple house, until he sort of collects himself and goes back and tries to figure out something. So he goes by that house and he leans, he sees the door is closed. So he leans, he rests against the door. The door swings open. And then he hears the groan of an old man who can hardly talk. And he says, "Oh, young man, come in. You are Allah's gift to me. You just came at the right time." And he could hardly talk. The old man says to him, "Listen, I am dying. Literally, I am now dying. But I wish I could eat some grapes. I fancy some grapes. Can you get me some grapes? I want to eat grapes before I die." He looked at the man and he realized he was literally dying, and he felt so bad for him. He himself had no money. So he said, "I'll get you grapes." And this young man was a person of such a beautiful, decent nature. Very goodly nature. So he rushes to the market. He goes to the person who sells fruits, vegetables, and he says, "How much is this amount of grapes?" He says, 1 dirham. He says, "Wallahi, I have no money, but I need that urgently. I'll give you my shirt, my upper shirt. Keep it with you until I get you the dirham, but I need to take these grapes now." So he takes the grapes, rushes to the old man. The old man was getting weaker by the minute, but he eats those grapes. And then he looks at this young man and he says, "Jazakallahu khairan, may Allah reward you. Allah sent you to me at this time." He said, "You see that corner in the house? I want you to dig in that spot." So he digs and he finds a clay pot. He says, "Bring it out." He brings it. And the old man says, "See what's in it." And it was full of gold coins. And this story, by the way, is not imaginary. It's real. It's very well documented. He says, "You know what? You see all this gold is yours. Take it." He couldn't believe it. He said, "How come?" He said, "I can't take this money until you tell me what the story of this money is." He said, "Listen, I was among the richest merchants of Baghdad. I am from Al-Rusafa, this part of Baghdad. I was among the richest merchants of Baghdad. We used to do business. My brother and myself would travel to India and we would bring about goods and spices and sell, and we made a lot of money. And one day on one of our trips, we stopped to rest and sleep in one area, and it was known for robbery, for thieves who jump on caravans. So I said to my brother, "You know what, let's hide our money. In case we get attacked, the money is safe." So my brother convinces me that that I convinced my brother to take his money, dig a hole and hide it there, and then we can sleep. And if we get attacked, we deny we have any money. And that night, they got jumped by a gang of highway robbers. And they know that these are merchants and they have wealth and money. And they said, "Where's your money?" And they didn't give them the money. It was a big caravan. They attacked the whole caravan. So this man denied. He said, "I don't have the money." They kept beating him up in order to get him to confess, and he would not until he passed out. They thought he was dead. They left him. Some of the members of the caravan were killed in the raid. Some of them managed to survive and escape. So he says, "I woke up. It was nighttime when we were attacked. I woke up in the middle of the day. I look around and I see some dead people and I see some injured people and some survivors. I search for my brother. I don't find him. No one's seen my brother." He says, "When I felt it was safe, I go and dig out the money and I come back home and I look for my brother everywhere. For years, I didn't find him. So I assumed he was dead, and most likely he was killed. But I didn't even find his body." He said, "That's the story. Jazakallah khair, you helped me. This money is my money. Take it, it's yours." He said, the old man said these words, passed away. He said, "I rushed, got a few people to help me to bury this old man, pray janazah on him, and give him an honored burial. And we put him put him in his grave. He says, I carry this money, I can't believe myself. Just an hour ago, I was the poorest man in Baghdad. Today, I'm probably the richest man in Baghdad. With this very weird incident. So he takes the money, and he wants to do two things. Get his shirt back, and pay the rent, so he doesn't get arrested. But he has to cross the river this time. Crossing the river, there were boats. They would pay them, and they would carry you to the other side. He said, I was trying to find a boat, and there is this older man who kept nagging me, ride with me, and he had the poorest boat there. But he was so insistent that I wanted to help him out. So I rode with him. Says, as we were riding, the old man says to me, you think I'm poor, everyone thinks I'm poor, they don't like my boat, they don't ride with me. But you know what? I was one of the richest people of this city. He says, how come? He says, I used to do business. I used to do business with my brother. We used to travel to India. We used to bring goods and sell them. And we had loads of money, but my brother set me up. He stabbed me in the back. How come? He says, one day when we were traveling, we decided to sleep and rest, and my brother said, give me your money, I'll hide it, just in case we get robbed. But he had already schemed with the robbers. He wanted me killed to take my money. So he said, when the robbers were gone, I looked around, I didn't see my brother. I realized he had set me up along with these guys. And I never found him afterwards. He ran away with my money. So now this young man looks at this old person, he says to him, he looks at him and he sees the similarity, physical similarity. He says, your brother never betrayed you. That's your brother's story. Then he tells him this story. And he says, you see all this gold? This is yours. Take it. It's not mine, it's yours. Somebody might be wondering, because half of it is this man's money, right? They were partners in business. Half of the money was this old man's money. The other half was the dead brother's money. But who inherits that money? His brother. But yet, yes, it was given to him. But you know what? It was given to him, and this is again a man of very good nature. A man who had something called izzat al-nafs, karamat al-nafs. He had this dignity, this honor, this generosity about his soul. He realized the old man gave it to him because he thought he had no family left. So he said, take it, that's all your money. The old man said, no, you take some part of it. He said, no, I don't want it. I don't have any desire in it. I only want 1 dirham so I can pay for the grapes and get my shirt back. And that's what he gets. He gets his shirt back. And then he's walking in the streets, and there the police or the soldiers are looking for him. He says, hey, we are arrested today. Then when they approach him, they say, we've been looking for you for the whole day. And now obviously he gets more worried. But they tell him, yesterday, one of the employees in the Diwan passed away, and that we have a vacant post. And we were looking for you to fill that post. So he goes there, and they see his shape. So they give him some advance. They tell him, fix yourself up, come tomorrow. And he fills that post. True story. This man, his honesty, his generosity, his skill, his concern for people makes him grow in his post and get promoted until about 20 years after that incident. The Khalifa, the Caliph of the Muslims, Al-Muqtafi bi Amrillah, Al-Abbasi, because of the good things he hears about this man, his skill, his expertise, his honesty, his concern for people, his devotion, his dedication for the work, he decides to make him the prime minister. And there was no prime minister or minister at the time. There was one post called minister, which was equals the prime minister today. The minister. And they tried to give him the name or the title Sayyidul Wuzara, the Prime Minister? He said no. He said no. Why? Because the Prophet Harun alayhi salam in the Quran was called Wazir. وَجَعَلْنَا مَعَهُ أَخَاهُ هَارُونَ وَزِيرًا. He said, I'm not better than Harun. Harun was Wazir. I'm not the Sayyidul Wazir. I can't be the master of the ministers. And Harun is a minister. I'm just a minister. And this man, by the way, grows to be one of the most prominent scholars of the history of Islam. He's one of the well-known fuqaha of the Hanbali madhab. And his opinions are known and he's looked up to. And his name is Al-Wazir ibn Hubayra. Very well known. Anyone who studies the Hanbali fiqh, he knows who Al-Wazir ibn Hubayra is. And he was a generous man. Extremely generous. He would help poor people. He would go out of his way to make things easy for people. And he was loved by everyone. When he died, the whole of Baghdad came out for his janazah. So this is an example of such a Muslim personality, a faqih, a Muslim scholar. And how he dealt with the hardships of life. I know all of us have hardships. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's social, sometimes psychological. Sometimes it's different things. We feel broken. We don't see light at the end of the tunnel. And we start losing hope. But Allah says, إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. No one despairs, no one loses hope in Allah's mercy. But those who disbelieve, those who don't have faith in Allah. This man could have taken the money, could have taken the wealth. He could have just, played dumb and not revealed the story to the man in the boat. But you know what? He knows that this is not what this life is about. This life is about making it safely to Allah. You probably can make some money here, but if it takes you away from Allah eternally, what's the point? It's a detriment. It's a detriment. So that's a beautiful example that all of us should learn from. Remember this name. Al-Wazir ibn Hubayra. Yahya ibn Muhammad. Very well known. He was the close friend of the great Imam Ibn al-Jawzi, the famous scholar who wrote Sayd al-Khatir, al-Mawdu'at, and others. The great Hanbali fiqh as well. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. If we talk about handling life with dignity, we talk about heroism, we talk about manhood, that's it. That's it. If we talk about resilience, we talk about patience, that's an example. And our history as Muslims is rich with people like that. Because our strength in the face of the hardships of life doesn't come from ourselves. It comes from Allah. It comes from our reliance on Allah, our trust in Allah. We don't claim it ourselves. And because it's Allah's help. And when life treats us with harshness, we never go against what is good. We never break the moral rules and moral code. We stay true to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because our goal is not this dunya. Even if you get this dunya and everything in it, how long is it going to last? How much pain it is going to bring you, even with the things you possess. This is the reality of this life. It will never be complete. It will never be perfect. It's a test. It's a test. Enough for a believer what gets him by. And if Allah gives you riches, if Allah gives you wealth, use it for the sake of Allah. Ibn Hubayra, rahimahullah, became one of the wealthiest people. One of the most important posts in the world at the time. And yet, when he died, he left nothing. Why? Because he was such a charitable person. He would sponsor widows, orphans, Quran schools. And he would study with the teachers. And he would sponsor students of knowledge. To the point that his children had to sell his personal library in order to, cash out on some funds. So this man, the world has come to him. Position, intelligence, knowledge, reputation, authority, public posts, you name it. But he gave all of that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Inna ruh al-Qudusi nafatha fi ruhi. أن نفسا لن تموت حتى تستوفي أجلها وتستوعب رزقها فاتقوا الله وأجملوا بالطلب ولا يحملن أحدكم استبطاء الرزق على أن يطلبه بمعصية الله فإنما عند الله لا ينال إلا بطاعته. The Prophet ﷺ said, Jibreel alayhi salam inspired me with these words, that a soul will not die until it completes its appointed time on earth. You will get your full age that is appointed to you by Allah. And until it consumes all of its provision, the provision that is written for you will come to you. No matter what you do, it was written and it will come to you. So you're not going to leave this world without getting what Allah wrote for you. It's decided. So fear Allah, be mindful of Allah, be dutiful to Allah. And when you seek your provision, seek it moderately, seek it with balance. Don't go crazy about it. Don't break the moral code when you do that. Don't be obsessed with it. Don't worship wealth and money and success. Use it as a means. Be moderate. Seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if the provision has come to you in short supply in the early stages, do not let that get you to go against the rules of Allah or seek it through something that is unlawful. Because the blessings of Allah and the provision of Allah can only be received by means of what Allah made halal. Because if you get it from haram, you might get the numbers, but the barakah, the blessings, the value, Allah will be removed. What is written for you will come. And look at this beautiful example. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might not treat you the same way as Ibn Hubayra. Maybe, the relief will not come to you straight away. Maybe it will come to you years later. So what? So what? When Allah tests you, He wants good for you. Whatever, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah wants ease for you. He doesn't want hardship. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَن يُخَفِّفَ عَنْكُمْ. Allah wants to make things easier for you. Wants to lessen the burden for you. Allah wants good for us. But we are so short-sighted and we are impatient and we start judging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let Allah lead your life. Do the right things. Fulfill the obligations. Obey Allah. Be dutiful. Live a life of purpose. And seek provision. Seek the means to provide for yourself and your family, but moderately, don't go crazy about it. Don't worship money. Don't worship these flashy titles of success and all of that stuff, because that has become a religion. For many people, it's become a god that is worshipped besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Free yourself from that, because that's a form of worshipping shaitan. You don't want to fall for it.